Okay. Good day, guys. Hi. So I'm Kate Garcia.
I'm Sabroso.
I'm Jayus de Guzman.
I'm Jessa Balderas.
And I'm James Lazaro.
Okay, so how are you guys feeling today?
We're
Doing just fine.
We're doing
Very
Ready to
good.
start the group discussion?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Okay. So as you all know, we're gonna talk about extrajudicial killings and how it contradicts the effectiveness of war on drugs in the Philippines. So we're gonna state some issues, some news regarding it, and ways to solve it. And let's just talk about it and let's see your opinions and let's just make this good communication. So let's start. So what is EJK?
So about this, there is actually a definition of extrajudicial killings based on Republic Act number 11188. So from the exact words, extrajudicial killings refer to all acts and omissions of state actors that constitute violation of the general recognition of the right to life, embodied in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the United Nations Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the UNCRC, and similar other human rights treaties to which the Philippines is a state party.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, it's the killing of people by governmental authorities without sanctions of any judicial proceeding or
Yes,
legal process. Okay.
Yes.
So, in connection, are there any things you want to add?
Upland Tokhang is in fact different from EJK because we have this common misconception that Upland Tokhang is equal to EJK, but then Upland Tokhang is in fact the project of the government wherein it came from the word tok tok and hangyo, which means tok tok to knock and then hangyo to make an appeal. So this is a Visayan term, and then this became associated with Upland Tokhang. Basically, Upland Tokhang became associated with EJK because EJK is a result of Upland Tokhang, wherein there were several killings of innocent people without proper due process.
Okay, so it's about drugs and the kids. So, what are some drugs that they find from these people?
So according to the Philippines News Agency, some of the drugs that we try to find are shabu, marijuana, ecstasy, cocaine, and many more.
Okay. Okay, so now, I guess these are, but this punishment of EJK is unethical. So,
Yeah.
regarding the human rights, anything, James?
Yes. So, with the extrajudicial killings that are happening, this means that our human rights are at stake. So, these human rights are inherent to all human beings. It can be regardless of the gender, the sex, the race, ethnicity, religion, or any other status. So, this definition is based on the United Nations. So, in the context of the extrajudicial killings, it could be said that the human rights that we're talking about here are the rights to a fair and just trial process and the right to be free from cruel or unreasonable punishments.
Okay. So, we considered talking about EJK in our group discussion because of some considerations, some issues. So, Jayus, what are the first issues we...
So I found this article that according to an urban violence and drug policy expert of Brookings Institution named Vanda Felba Brown, war on drugs is actually hiding accounts of violence and cases of murder.
Okay, how about you, James?
In my research, some people assert that this war on drugs is in fact ineffective. And according to the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency or the PDEA, 4,948 suspected drug users and drug dealers died under the war on drugs campaign from July 1, 2016 to September 30, 2018.
I also read the same thing on the Human Rights Watch. How about you, Jessica?
According to Bashar and Binales, the government failed to stop the proliferation of drugs in the Philippines because more than 129.5 million US dollars or 6.8 billion pesos worth of illegal drugs slipped past the country's ports this year, which basically shows that police operations are not effective to stop the influx of illegal drugs in the country.
How about you, Sean?
So another fact that we considered, according to the news article in Philstar, is the case of Kian de los Santos, and where it is considered to be a murder and not a case of extrajudicial killing. There are a lot of innocent people nowadays who die because of these extrajudicial killings, and they couldn't even find justice for their lives.
In addition, the police officers in Kian's case, Arnel Owares, Jeremias Pereda, and Green Cruz were sentenced to reclusion perpetua, wherein they are sentenced to jail from 20 to 40 years because they were proven guilty, but they were acquitted with the charges of implanting evidences in Kian's body.
Okay, since we're in part of evidences already, so any more pieces of evidence, James?
Because extrajudicial killings are very rampant and the toll deaths are continuously rising, our jails now are overcrowded. And this has caused a steep decline in the respect for humans' basic rights. So, very disappointing.
It's sad. How about you?
I found this news article from Rappler in December 2018 that there is this death of a drug suspect from Antipolo named Joselito Gonzalez. But it was said that his death was actually caused by an extrajudicial killing, based from the judgment of the Court of Appeals. This is because the policemen have failed to follow the proper processes of the drug buy-bust operation. And in addition to that, there was also doubts regarding on how the suspect was killed, because he was shot at the back, but it was not automatic that he was trying to fire towards the policeman. It is said that it could have been possible that he was just really running for his life.
Yeah. Probably
So
because he was shot at the back.
Yes,
Yes.
that could be the case.
So how about you, Sean?
So another piece of evidence that we could consider is the news. And some examples of their headlines are: at least 33 killed daily in the Philippines since Duterte assumed office, counting the killings, 20,000 and rising. And lastly, Philippine police, 14 drug suspects killed.
No, how about you, Jessa?
According to QP, a study conducted by the Human Rights Watch from October 2016 to January 2017 showed that police officers were in fact planting evidences into the drug syndicates. So there were also reports that differed from the accounts of the witnesses. So for example, the policeman reported that the drug syndicate or the victim is nanlaban, but in fact the other accounts from the witnesses or the relatives or the friends of the victim stated otherwise.
Yeah, there are so many accounts that their relatives will be saying that they're not like that. Their attitude won't, the way they act around them and their attitude towards other people wouldn't do such in their opinions. And I also found a news in ABS-CBN about this guy they were just watching TV in their house, and then someone knocked on their door, and then they asked for him. And then after an hour, he was found under a bridge with with a handkerchief on his mouth, and then he was tied as well. But then he was also shot. And then his relatives still mourning for his loss. After a week, his brother was also called by the police, and then after that, his brother was also found under that bridge, dead as well, the same way he died. So it's really horrible. These pieces of evidence really show extrajudicial killings in the Philippines. So, in relation to these evidences, so why is it important to know these things? Do you have experiences regarding these?
Personally, I have an experience. When I was in grade 11, I have these two classmates because we were tasked to stay overnight at one of the house of our classmates in Bendia. So these two classmates of mine, male classmates, talked that or agreed that they will meet in Baclaran, Macdo. So classmate A arrived first, and then classmate B, he was waiting for classmate B. So apparently he can't contact classmate B, that's why he went out from McDo and walked several meters away from McDo. And then, according to classmate B, he saw classmate A getting, what do you call this?
Tired.
Tied or rather,
Handcuffed.
handcuffed by the policeman. But however, the guy or the policemen were not wearing uniform, but instead they had handcuffs, radios, and guns. So, classmate A was saying na, hindi po, nagkakamali po kayo. Basically, he was fighting for his life. And then classmate B went into the scene, and then he asked for help of the people around them, but the people around them seemed to not care. And rather, they just watched. What he said was like, it seems normal for the people, because it was past to when they got to Buendia, and then they had bruises. Their mouth was bleeding, and then that's when they told the story. And then one of our classmates, in fact, was traumatized. He couldn't speak. Classmate A couldn't speak. He was just silent all the time, and he was crying. So classmate B said that they were put inside the van, and then they were handcuffed, and then they were asked to face the floor, so they were kneeling, and then they were like that. And then there were guns at the back of their head, and then the police kept saying na, sige, subukan niyo mag-ingay, puputok ko tong baril, parang gano'n. And then, suddenly, the ID of classmate B fell from his pocket. So the police saw it. And then, the police said to the guy in front, or the civilian in front, that, pre, malitin na nadampot, estudyante to. So, the guy in front radioed another, I think it's a policeman, of course, that, pre, estudyante, mali yung op, nag-fail yung OP means operation. So, they were given 400 pesos in order to take a taxi to Buendia, but then they failed to go to class for almost 1 to 2 weeks because of their body aches, their bruises, and the traumas.
That's so horrible. Luckily, they saw his ID.
Yeah, that's why
Yes.
that's why our school issued a policy that we should wear our ID at all times, because very, very dangerous disease.
That's nice. How about you, JJ?
In the province, one time, our neighbor was caught for drug pushing, but unlike Jessa, it's not a mistaken identity case because he was caught in the act selling this ecstasy cocaine to these minor students wearing their school uniforms. So it's very disappointing. This guy selling these drugs to wearing uniform, students wearing uniform. So it's also a good thing that he was already caught because our place it's near a high school. So what can we think of? Maybe he can do it to other students. So it's just a good thing that he was already caught.
Also, in the relation that I actually have an experience, I just remembered, because in our high school as well, this is our high school, and then there's this at the back of our gate, the gate 3, it's at the back of the school. There's this sari-sari store. We always buy there chips and soft drinks because we're not allowed in our campus. There's just juices in the class, in the campus, and biscuits. And then one day, that sari-sari store closed. And then we were so puzzled because for us, it's important that after the class, we'll have chips and soft drinks. And then we found out, I asked our security guard who guards gate 3, that sari-sari store pala was owned by drug syndicates. So they sell drugs. So it's like a drug den, but that sari-sari store is a drug den. So luckily, it was taken out, and they all got arrested, which is good. That's why it's an empty house already. So which is really good since we're a school. So it was
Speaking of school and drugs, I came from a science class, and then 2 of my classmates were expelled because we caught them on act smoking weeds inside our campus. But that time, Duterte was still not in position. So imagine what could have happened. They were caught on act. thinking that there's a nearby police station near our school, and then what do you think would have happened if Duterte was in position, right? Are they still alive right now?
Would
Or
have
we
been,
never
would have
know.
been horrible.
Yeah,
Right?
would have been horrible.
don't
We never
know.
know.
Okay, so guys, thank you for sharing your evidences, pieces of evidences, and experiences. So, how severe is this problem? To what extent has extrajudicial killings is in the Philippines?
Do you know, guys, that the Philippine tops a survey?
Nice.
What kind of survey? We top the survey as having a huge number of incidents of extrajudicial killings. So,
That's so sad.
very disappointing.
How about you, Jessa?
There was also a survey done by the Social Weather Station from December 16 to 19, 2018, wherein the poll showed that 78% of the Filipinos worried that they or anyone will know will be a victim of EJK. So, this survey says a lot already about the political climate of our country, as well as how Filipinos fear for themselves or their lives as well as others, which shows that EJK is not working. Rather, Oplantokhang is not working. Instead of eradicating drugs in our country, just eradicates the lives of the innocents.
Okay,
Just gives trauma to people.
Yeah.
that's true.
Exactly.
James, anything to add?
That goes just to show that there is a high level of severity in this problem, given that there is like the constant incidents of extrajudicial killings, the involvement of the innocent lives, and also the fact that there are people who are afraid
Yeah,
of these
innocent
extrajudicial
people.
killings. And the thing is, we're supposed to feel secure at least that the drugs or the problem of drugs could be eliminated instead of
Yeah.
being scared that we might actually get killed.
Yeah,
Yes.
because as a part of a society, we have laws to protect us. That's just a part of being a Filipino. Even in other countries, they have laws to protect their people in the country. The fact that we Filipinos don't feel safe in our country speaks highly of how this is such a big problem, EJK, and the war on drugs is such a problem in the Philippines. Sean, do you have anything to add?
So in general, I think that denouncing the killings should not mean condoning the alleged illegal activities of its victims. What it should translate to is a demand for the police and military to follow the law and respect due process and human rights, so that criminals can be properly punished in accordance with what is in the law. The extent of this issue would reach the public mass or the poor people, since they are the ones who are largely affected. It is indeed severe since it involves human rights and the lives of the people.
Okay, so with all that said, what do you think are the chief causes of EJK in the Philippines?
One of the chief causes of the problem is that the police errors in identifying the members of the drug syndicate. This is a cause of EJK because in the process, people get killed because of mistaken identity.
Another is the big syndicate, the elite people, the businessmen, and even our politicians are not yet being arrested, right? And what's more disappointing is how our very own President Rodrigo Duterte addressed this. In his speech, he even said that, patayin pag may droga, sagot ko kayo. So, he clearly does not care about those people and their basic human rights.
Yeah, and it's incentivized, right? The
Yeah,
more they get
incentive.
syndicates,
Yeah.
they get money.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure with this, but I read it. I'm sure that they're incentivized, but I'm not sure with the amount of money.
I'm sure. I think it's 5,000 per head because you remember the story I told you a while ago with the
Yes.
classmates, right? The father of one of my classmates was a police in Pasay. So basically, we called his dad and informed him with what happened regarding our two classmates. And then he went to the house of our classmate nga, and then he asked questions like what were they wearing, do they have guns, what kind of guns do they have. He let the my two classmates recount the incident, and then he said that it was Tokhang. He confirmed it himself that it was Tokhang, but instead of wearing police clothes or uniforms, the police were wearing civilians in order to disguise themselves. And then he said that um, every head, it's like 5,000 per head because they have incentives and then they get rewarded at the end of the year, I think, if they have the highest number of kills or drug syndicates that they are able to surrender.
That's so sad.
That's so sad.
Do you have anything to add, Jess?
In addition, Carpio Jokman Yolen stated that EJK violates human rights such as the right to privacy, right against unreasonable search and seizure, right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, right against self-incrimination, the right to custodial interrogation, and the right to domicile. So an example of this was, I have this Facebook friend from my old school. She was my schoolmate, and then she posted a status asking for help because her brother was arrested by the police, so they were just watching television from their, just like what you said a while ago, they were just watching television and then the police came knocking to their door and then the police arrested his brother. But then she said that the police doesn't have a search warrant, so and a warrant of arrest. So basically, it's very, very much illegal and it violates our human rights against the rights of the right to a reasonable search and seizure because without proper search warrant and warrant of arrest, the police can't do any action about it.
That's true.
That's true.
In addition to that, the mindset of Duterte statements that we have mentioned before leads to the unreasonable involvement of even children in these extrajudicial killings. Like, there's this source from Amnesty International that between July 1 and early December 2016, there were between 25 and 27 deaths of children as a result of drug-related operations. 2 of them were actual targets, but the rest were just killed by mistake. So
That's so
that's
sad.
like a really big problem.
Yeah, like Ian, which you mentioned earlier. So sad. So, guys, so the problem remains unsolved. So we have so much evidences that EJK is unsolved in the Philippines. And this is such a horrible thing to know that the Philippines is one of the, or leading country in EJK in EJK. So what is the result of this?
So, a study was conducted by Human Rights Watch which showed that countries who have a strong or a strong implement or harsh drug enforcement regarding the war on drugs, just like Philippines, has significant negative public health consequences. Why? Because this can lead to drug users going underground and away from critical health services. So since they are scared of getting caught, they tend to hide themselves from proper health services. And due to this, there can be transmission of HIV and hepatitis C among people who use drugs. So this can also discourage people with drug dependence from seeking effective treatment services.
Moreover, this mistaken identity, shot to death, and etc. cases, we can see that our government and the police failed to properly investigate these people. So it's just a proof that our Philippine justice system is very ineffective right now.
That's true. Anything to add, Sean?
So with accordance to what Jessa said a while ago, Filipinos fear to become victims of extrajudicial killings. Drug syndicates would still continue to fight and kill many people in between. Some police would use this as a reason to justify their killings, and innocent people would be shot dead and have nothing or anything to defend themselves.
In addition to that, if the problem remains unsolved, then the war on drugs might not be able to solve the actual root of the problem. And especially these big drug syndicates or pushers have more power or influence to spread the usage of drugs to people, especially those of the marginalized sectors. So if this would be eliminated, then it would continue to cause trouble.
Another worst thing is that the number of vigilante killings will continuously increase and will still involve these poor and innocent people. So,
Are there things currently being done to change these? How about you, James? Yeah.
Right now, we can say that it's still good that some cases are not yet given up and are still open for some investigations.
Okay, Sean?
In today's time, people starts to learn more about EJK and participate in discussions about it, and they begin joining in rallies and protests in order to speak out their opinions or what's on their mind.
On the other hand, the side of the police or the Philippine National Police and the government firmly believe that Oplantokhang is working and that it helps in eradicating the drug flow of the countries based on a survey. However, several studies have debunked their claims that that Oplantokhang is working and as a result, EJK is happening.
So to give some specific statistics from Jessa's statement, in a social weather station survey that was conducted, it was said that 66% of Filipinos believe that the war on drugs is a success. But the thing is, the incidents that we see or hear or other facts or studies may be
Yes.
contradicting this notion that it is successful.
Okay. So, possible things to do and possible things people are doing as of now. I have an example, a legal alliance, which is called Manlaban. They actually give service programs and paralegal volunteers, which help people who are accused of having to be related to drugs or drug syndicates, which is good since EJK is rampant. So do you have other examples of these changes?
I think let us continue to support the rallies, petitions, and even on social media platforms because this promotes democracy and brings attention to an issue that calls our government to immediately act on the problem. However, these rallies, petitions, and etc. do not guarantee the desired change that we wanted.
Okay, how about you, Sean?
I think if we couldn't stop this extrajudicial killing since Duterte is still in position, then we should just seek for some drug alternatives. Like we should change the people's mindsets about drugs. Rehabilitation clinics must be put in place to take care of drug addicts who wants to reform and have to be reformed. If these are run well with properly trained and experienced staff using proven techniques, drug addicts can be reformed and brought back into society where they can become useful members. However, going into rehab would create a lot of risks and sacrifices.
And in relation, I watched documentary that showed the state of rehabilitation centers here in the Philippines, and even in the news they show the state of rehabilitation centers and even jails in the Philippines. It's just not conducive for change, and there's just not enough to accommodate the amount of people that needs rehabilitation. So, JS, do you have anything to add?
I think a solution to this problem would be to target the big drug syndicates, pushers, or suppliers of the country. And this is because they are like the biggest operators of these drugs. So therefore this would help to eliminate these drugs. Imagine that they might be owning millions of pesos worth of shabu or cocaine. Then if we're going to be able to get into that, then the problem might be solved. But we could say that it might be also not as easy because the users themselves might also be still able to consume these drugs in small amounts. As long as there's still production of these drugs, then the usage is still possible.
In relation to what Sean said, so according to Self-Enhancement for Life Foundation or SELF, we can address the problems regarding Oplantokhang with the creation of therapeutic communities with clinical intervention. So the advantage of this is that it will help in addressing the user's drug dependence as well as on other harmful substances and behavior. However, according to the founder and the president of SELF, Martin Infante, the process is time-consuming since relapse is a part of the rehabilitation process.
And I think those drug users also must be willing
To submit
to
themselves.
submit themselves because if they're not, nothing will happen to them.
Yeah, that's true. And then, so you've guys given possible solutions and answers that are currently being done or hopefully to be done. Okay, so in the what are the desirable solution? Like, we have to agree on a solution to this. And I want to state my opinion first that I believe that it's what Jay said, that we have to target big drug syndicates, the ones who make these drugs, the ones who give it to the poor people, because it works like a hierarchy. If someone from the top creates those drugs and gives those drugs, and if these people don't get caught by the government, or these are just hidden from us, and they have the power to not be caught by officials, government officials, then nothing will happen because all those drugs will just come running down to our Filipino system. Anyone else? Jessa?
I think I agree with targeting the drug syndicates first, because I think that war on drugs is not war on drugs unless we properly address the root of the problem, which is the big drug syndicates itself. Because I think that as long as the government tries to arrest, or rather attack the poor, it will not be war on drugs, but it will be war against the poor. Because actually, people or poor people who use drugs in small amounts does not really affect the drug problem as a whole in the Philippines, but rather a small percentage. That's why we need to address is the primary source of drugs, which are the drug syndicates.
Okay,
Big drug
about you,
syndicates.
James.
However, we cannot, we the normal citizens of the Philippines, we cannot deny the fact that these big syndicates are owned and hold our politicians, businessmen, and the richest people here in our country. So it would be very hard for us to do some action on it. So the government holds the power on it. So I think it's their responsibility to do such act.
Okay, how about you, Sean?
Yeah, I agree with you guys that the most desirable solution is to target the big drug syndicates, because they are the foundation of the production of the drugs. They are the root cause, which the main source of all the violation of human rights and the death of innocent lives.
Like, I do think that targeting the big drug syndicates or the pushers or suppliers would be the best solution, due to it being like the root of the problem and due to it causing the majority of the problem. But then, it is also to be noted that, as like what James said, that we can only do so much in proposing or like doing these solutions, because the main force that will put these solutions to life would be the government. If they're not gonna have the same mindset, or at least if they're not going to listen to the voices of those who are concerned, then the progress won't be as good as we envision it to be.
But what's really bothering was, in a speech of Duterte he gave last September 2018, he said that his only sin is extrajudicial killings. So he's admitting that EJK is happening in the Philippines. And in relation to the things that you're saying about having the money and the rich people not being covered in this EJK, I have an experience wherein he's not a friend of mine, but I know him from a friend of mine. He got caught in the act of drugs, and he was caught in a village, in a very privileged village, and then so he was just asked for 300,000. So being rich, he got to give that 300,000 instantly. So, well, nothing happened. He didn't go to jail. He didn't get accused of anything. And besides the fact that policemen like to be incentivized. Now these poor community, people who are accused from the poor community, don't have this amount of money so that they could bail themselves, or they can not be accused of being drug pushers. And this is such a terrible thing.
I also think that these big people has these connections inside inside the police, inside the government, that makes them easily be freed or
That's why
such.
these privileged people can easily have the evidences manipulated just so that they can actually be freed. They can actually be cleared of these charges.
And actually, I think our government officials are in fact a, a form of a drug protector because they enable big drug syndicates but target the small ones. So instead of helping in eradicating the drugs, they are the ones that enables the flow of drugs in the Philippines. And that I think we are also scared with the big drug syndicates because these big drug syndicates have connections, underground connections, and have lots of money. And I think personally that's why one of the reasons why our government is not really targeting the big drug syndicates that they're also benefiting from the flow
That's true.
of drugs in the country.
That's true. So with that, so our desirable solution is that big drug syndicates should be eradicated.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I know that what was mentioned earlier that we should also have support groups and legal alliances. That's also important. But then these things we could have these, but then eradicating the bigger problem so that we can eradicate and we can have less EJK would be better. It's a part of the solution, but then I agree with all of you guys that stopping it from its core would be the best. So I know as college students, we are sadly below than government officials. We do have a say, we do have a voice. That's why we do protests as UP students, we do our protests. Also, we stand by those people who are being accused of wrong things. And I'm proud that we do that as a community. But then, as a college student, I'll ask for each of your opinion. What can we do?
Having the privilege of the knowledge, and the power, I think we can use the social media to share information, share the right news to people so they can be informed and they can be prepared for whatever may happen. I think people should know the basic laws so they can protect themselves, their families, and yeah.
Infographics,
Yeah,
and
infographics.
giving them statistics so they'd be knowledgeable about these
Yes.
statistics.
I think as a college student or as a teenager, it is also important that we use our voice in order to disseminate information or promote awareness and change in the society. Since we are educated, we have the privilege to be educated. Let us share our privilege to other people and lecture them, conduct educational discourses, as well as support other protests, and not just in the form of rallying in the streets, but in the form of film protests or art protests. An example of this is the Buy Bust film,
That's true.
wherein it is about the Oplan Tokhang or EJK in the Philippines. Basically, we can a little goes a long way. Our small steps or our small course of action can do so much in the society. What the society needs is education and mercy, not a kamay na bakal or not a strong enforcement of the law, but a right enforcement of the law.
That's true. JS?
So I think my thoughts would be similar to them in a sense that the sharing and the dissemination of information would be really important in order to at least help in solving the problem, because if you at least spread this information to whoever you know, to your friends, to your social groups or other people, then you could at least save a single life from being destroyed. And if not only a single person and all of us would be able to do it, then we will be able to save more lives, basically. So I
Yeah,
think that should be
true.
kept in mind.
Yeah, we do have the human rights, we do have laws to protect people, but then the problem is our own government officials are not following these laws, and I think that if we can make people more knowledgeable about this, then they would know what to do in a case of EJK or in a case of being accused of being a drug syndicate. How about you, Sean?
So I think as students, we could conduct lectures and demonstrations as to establish, just like what you said, awareness and knowledge about drugs, EJK, and how this it affect us as members of the society. Parents and relatives of these youths must be included in order to guide the students, just like us, to how to deal with this issue and what to do if EJK is actually happening right in front of us.
I honestly think that the main root of this problem, aside from the big drug syndicates, is poverty itself. Because
That's true.
people tend to do stuff for easy money, like because they think that selling drugs or using drugs can help them escape their problems, can help them provide an easy money or a faster way of transaction for money. But that's not the case, simply because they are not educated or they're not privileged enough to be educated to know the consequences of their action. That's why it is our job to, as a student, to educate the society with the negative consequences, and that the educational, I also think that the educational researches or the studies of the organizations should be demonized or dehumanized in order for the society to understand that it should not retain in libraries. We should
That is true.
go out to the streets
I
and
also
teach
think
them.
I also think that we can do some social works and volunteering and donations to NGOs and
Yeah.
charities, so we can have this better rehabilitation
Yeah.
centers.
Helping rehabilitation centers could be a big help. That's nice. Because having, like what I said earlier, having little rehabilitation centers, there's no really conducive way of changing for people who are having drug problems. They don't deserve to die, they deserve to change.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
that's very important.
They deserve a better life.
You deserve a second chance.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you guys. We've talked about what things, issues, and news contradict these war on drugs, effectiveness of war on drugs. Actually, war on drugs is actually more problematic than being a good help to the Filipinos. It actually creates extrajudicial killings more than eradicating drug problems in the Philippines.
True.
And it's also nice that we got to talk about possible answers and solutions that are actually being done and have yet to be done in the Philippines, and as college students and as people in the academe, some things we can do to eradicate this problem. Do you guys have any more things to say and to add?
We're settled.
Okay, so let's have
Very
5
nice
claps and then a
discussion.
pat in the back.
Okay,
Okay, so-
1, 2, 3.